When Chris and I went to Houston last year for our Houston using only public transit episode, there were quite a few things that surprised us. The most notable, though, was how frequent and reliable the Red Line light rail was. And look at that, we haven't even left the station.
And another train.
And another Red Line train is actively pulling in, which is that's pretty good. With service every 6 minutes at peak and high ridership numbers, you would think that this would be something that the city would want to continue to make better. Unfortunately, based on the news of the last few weeks, that is not the case. Being that the Red Line is a light rail running at street level, to function well, it requires signal priority, making sure that the trains can move through intersections quickly to stay on schedule. A few weeks ago, however, that signal priority, it just stopped. With no warning, riders began dealing with delays and unreliable service as a result.
Last night, I called Metro customer service to be like, what's going on with the Red Line? And they said, talk to the mayor.
This week, I had the chance to speak with Peter Eccles, the policy director of Link Houston, to get up to speed on what exactly is going on in Houston. So today, we're fortunate to be joined by Peter Eccles, who is the director of policy and planning at Link Houston. What exactly is going on with the Red Line in Houston the last couple of weeks?
Sure. So Houston's Red Line, our busiest transit route, light rail line in Houston, Texas, as part of the metro system, is really a shining star for frequency, ridership, connecting really dense activity centers in Houston. For when it was first introduced, the initial operating segment from downtown to the medical center and then down to the stadiums was the second highest ridership per mile light rail system in the United States for a good period of time, which I think comes as a big surprise to folks who might have an image of Houston in their mind as
I didn't realize the riders.
place.
Yeah, I didn't realize the ridership levels were so high. So I've Chris and I, when we were down in Houston 6 or 8 months or so ago, were really surprised with how frequent the Red Line was. I mean, I feel like while we were there most of the day, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, felt like it was running around 6 minutes or something during the day.
That's right. The weekday, like daytime hours from start of service till about 7 or 8 p.m., depending on direction, it runs every 6 minutes throughout the day, which is among the most frequent transit lines in North America, period. More frequent than some lines in the New York City subway, for instance. And the way that it's been able to run so frequently and so reliably at grade is through traffic signal preemption. It runs at grade for basically the entirety of its route, other than a few grade separations over freight rail lines. But for the large part, it's crossing city streets and pretty busy city streets at that. But through traffic signal preemption, the signal hardware will sense that the train is coming, give it a green light, allow the train to pass through, maybe move up the red cycle for the car traffic on the cross streets, and cause them to wait another 30 seconds or so. But in the process, moving it a lot faster, and reliably every 6 minutes with proper train separation all the way throughout. And it's a very impressive system. It's taken a lot of work to calibrate and to get right. But as a result, we have this fantastically reliable transit line that runs at grade between two of our busiest job centers in Houston. On September 20th, we learned that the train was stopping a lot more red lights than it usually had. We heard this from riders, from people who were like, why is the train so late? Why is it taking so long to get certain places? We also saw some published service alerts from Metro saying, due to a mechanical malfunction or track conditions, the train is subject to delays. And after a few days of this going on without being resolved, it was a little curious, dug in a little deeper, noticed that the train was stopping at red lights that it typically did not, and was taking much longer to traverse even short quarter or half mile segments than usual. At one point, I use the Red Line every day. I take it from where I live down by Herman Park to downtown where our office is. And at one bit, out of frustration, I was like, I'm just going to walk and see how far I can get. I was able to walk like the entire length of downtown until a train came, which previously never would have happened.
Right.
And we started to, we and other riders who were frustrated started to reach out to Metro's customer service and say, what's going on here? And what we learned is that the traffic signal preemption had indeed been disabled. Either the city had done it or Metro had done it. There was sort of
Right.
confusion in the responses that we would get from these public agencies. And then finally, Metro came out with an official statement saying that this was part of a broader retiming of downtown, which we can get into in just
Right.
a moment.
Yeah. So just for folks too, I mean, essentially before all of this, you would get on at a stop, and it would be very unlikely that you would come to a stop until you reach the next, destination on the red line.
Right.
You would get mostly green lights, and Peter already mentioned how frequent the rail route was running, especially with these light rail systems in denser urban areas in the city. Having the frequency and then also having that red light preemption makes it so that the service can run reliably. And even if it's not going extremely fast station to station, you're still moving, which keeps the service reliable. But
It keeps it reliable.
Mhm.
It allows it to maintain a higher average speed. It might not reach the top speed all the time, but the
Mhm.
average speed is what really matters to folks. Like, what is the duration of my journey? And
Right.
it's also a safety issue when you're running a light rail line at grade on busy streets. The operators want to be on time. They want to move their passengers fast, and they may feel a pressure to maintain the schedule and try and get up to a higher speed, get through yellow lights. And I'm not trying to pin this on one operator in particular or anything like that, but one of the reasons that they put this preemption in place was to maintain that higher average speed and to improve safety as a result.
Mhm.
And that's one of many reasons why the preemption was so important.
Right. And I mean, when we mention the safety, the reliability, all of this ultimately leads to, can people get to their destination on time without having to really pre-plan for it? Because if
Right.
you can get to your destination on time, you can get to work on time, get to your, doctor's appointment, picking up your kids from school on time, you're more likely to use that piece of transit again. And in a city like Houston, which is well known for its traffic issues, having those reliable systems in place is the way to solve it. So
Absolutely.
this system is essentially was turned off, and in looking into this a bit, it seems like it was turned off by the mayor, folks in the mayor's office. I guess, can you talk about that dynamic? Because for a lot of folks, who maybe are not familiar with Houston, hearing that the mayor in some cases is the one who is making the transit worse for transit riders is not something you're used to hearing. I guess, can you talk a little bit about the decision that was made? Was it am I correct in saying that it was made up at the mayor's office? Is it Metro? What's going on with that?
So I would say at this point, it's not entirely clear why this happened and what the decision making process was.
Hmm.
This is kind of a unique situation in terms of jurisdiction, where there's a lot of overlap between multiple agencies. The light rail lines run on city streets, so that's right of way of the city of Houston, and that's traffic signals and control boxes that are owned and maintained by the city of Houston. Still, traffic signal preemption for transit vehicles is a complicated thing to maintain, and it is to be expected that the technical staff that know how to maintain something like that are housed inside Metro.
Hmm.
So to sum it up shortly, there's a collaboration between both of these agencies. There had to be to make a change this big,
Right.
um, but it's not entirely clear who asked for it or why. What we do know is that when you reach out to Metro customer service, they'll say this is a decision made by the city of Houston using their signals. Um, an official statement from Metro suggested that this was a collaboration between the city of Houston as part of a larger retiming effort of traffic signals downtown, which we knew was going on for a few years right now to try and
Hmm.
optimize traffic flow through downtown to maybe synchronize some of the lights better. Um, that's a very complicated kind of project
Right.
with trade-offs. You can speed up traffic in some direction, but maybe reduce it in another. But in this particular instance, there's really no need to turn off traffic signal preemption for the red line to substantially improve traffic flow in other areas. The most dominant traffic flow in downtown Houston is north-south. because of the freeways that feed into those streets at either end. And the red line also runs north-south. So there's no interference there. You can synchronize the lights going northbound. So if you're maintaining 25 miles an hour, you're always hitting the green without touching the red line.
Right. And it can be
the
beneficial
red
for the
line,
vehicle traffic and the red line. Yeah.
exactly. And in terms of trying to spread the burden of light delays, this really does not make any sense. The delays in the red line that were resulting from the traffic signal preemption disruption at its worst were averaging around 10 minutes in each direction. The light rail line, the red line carries about 34,000 boardings on weekdays. So that's a collective 5,600 hours of wasted time.
Right. So it's now taking 10 minutes longer than it was before to get through this stretch of downtown.
That's right. And
Right.
when you
And I
multiply
mean,
that
just
by
for
all,
folks to have the idea too, like what was the rough time before? Because my guess is this would have been like 2 or 3 minutes before to get through this section, and now it's 12 or 13, just to give folks an idea of what, even if it's an estimate.
So I mean, the segment from it was in downtown and midtown, so from like roughly Commerce Street down to Wheeler or Alabama. That trip, I would need to look up the schedule exactly. I know that my commute was taking about 15 minutes before, and after this, it was taking in the neighborhood of 25, sometimes 30. So that's that should help put into context. And then the overall runtime of the red line is 52 minutes, so you add 10 minutes or more onto that. Then that becomes 62, and that throws off lots of things. These schedules are carefully calibrated to get the next return trip to go around, to ensure vehicle availability, to ensure breaks for operators, and all sorts of labor laws and stuff. It really
Yeah, just from afar. I mean, you can see even in, I'm seeing all sorts of images on social media, and I'm sure you're seeing it in person, where it's like, you've got 2 or 3 red line light rail vehicles bunched up, stuck together in a row, which then leads to more issues down the line of, okay, now the schedule is off. Now we have all of these at once, and you end up with a gap where you did have every 6-minute frequencies, and now it's, one train right after the other, and then a gap for 25 minutes or whatever it may be, which makes the service unreliable, which makes it so that folks don't want to, can't rely on it. And now they're looking for all other alternatives on how to get to where they need to go. I saw something
listeners of
interesting
this podcast are probably
Oh,
familiar with bus bunching, but not usually on a rail system, and that's
it's happening on the rail system, right? Not good. Something interesting that I thought you all did that was a really creative piece of advocacy to kind of raise awareness was you all actually kind of raced the red line by walking alongside the route. Can you talk about that and kind of the results of that in terms of any additional attention, reactions from the city, anything like that as a result?
Sure. So we last Thursday we held a advocacy event to draw attention to how much slower the red line was running and how less reliable it was, and it was a foot race of the train, where we were going to see for a 2-stop segment if we could beat it on foot. That trip is it's like 6 or 7 blocks. Typically takes about 3 minutes for the train to traverse, and especially if we were racing the train from the moment the doors closed and following all traffic laws, no jaywalking, then it should have been no question that the train would have beat us cleanly. And that's what we did. We waited for the train to come, waited for the doors to close, waited for green lights for both of us, and we set off. And over that 6 or 7 block segment, we tied the train at the end. And for multiple points, we were in the lead.
Right.
Our overall trip time from Preston Station to Main Street Square was about 10 minutes. And again, this is a trip that regularly takes 3 minutes and is scheduled to take 3 minutes on the red line.
Right.
So that was, we were fortunate to get some media attention to this to help more Houstonians hear about how this was impacting people. And yeah, it was a useful kind of visual exercise for people to understand exactly how much longer this was taking. And if it's faster to walk, what's the point of having the train in the first place? The train is supposed to serve a purpose for people.
Yep. I'm curious. So this is happening now. What sorts of steps are you all taking to get a sort of resolution to this? Is this something that can be solved in city council? Is it, metro board type stuff? I guess what are the steps that need to happen to kind of get this resolved?
Yeah. So as I was describing earlier, this is a complicated issue in terms of who's responsible and what the jurisdiction is. So we're trying to take an all of the above approach. The typical channels here are to file official complaints with Metro Customer Service and to 311, the city's main service request line. So we've been doing that, and we've been encouraging other riders to do the same. But we've also been trying to speak directly to City Council. We had people show up last Tuesday afternoon around 2 to come and voice their concerns directly to City Council and the mayor to say, please, this is really delaying people's trips. We also plan to mobilize people to speak at the Metro board in the next few weeks. They have committee meetings the third week of the month, and then a full meeting of the board the fourth week of the month. And ideally, traffic signal preemption will get turned on tomorrow, and this won't be a problem anymore. And that's what they could do if they chose to. But still, we find that traffic signal preemption is off, and that's not acceptable to the tens of thousands of people who ride Metro Red Line every day.
Yeah.
We also have, I should mention, we also have
ahead.
a petition to the mayor and Metro, which has in a little over a week attracted 500 signatures to get to demonstrate to the agencies responsible that people really care about this, they're noticing, and they want it fixed.
Awesome. We'll make sure that is linked for folks from Houston who want to get involved with that, and we'll make sure there's links to your organization as well for folks who want to get more involved
Wonderful.
there. I'm curious, what the reaction at City Council? Did you have some City Council members reacting positively? Is this an issue that a handful of them are really caring about and working on, or I guess I don't know the dynamics of Houston City Council as well as I did in Austin, so I'm curious the reactions there.
The mayor spoke briefly to one of the people who came to speak at public comment, saying, "Did you know that this was a Metro issue?" Which again demonstrates the finger pointing that's going on around this particular issue. Because
Metro saying one thing, mayor saying the other. Yeah.
Just last night I called Metro customer service to be like, what's going on with the red line? And they said, talk to the mayor. So, it's
Yep.
This is what we're dealing with, where nobody will take responsibility for what's happening here.
I want to touch on a couple other things here before I kind of bring up any other recent projects. What other sorts of things does Link Houston focus on? I mean, obviously, this red line issue you all have really taken on as it's fresh and is just kind of happening. But I'd imagine there were lots of other things you all were working on before September 20th when the switch was flipped on this. I'm curious to learn more about some of the other advocacy work you all are doing in Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. So Link Houston has been around since 2017. We advocate for a robust and equitable transportation network in Houston so all people can reach opportunity, and with a focus on equity is really a focus on those who have been left out of the transportation system in Houston, which has been so centered around cars for many decades. People who walk, bike, use public transit, have limited vehicle access, either no vehicle or only one vehicle at home. And even people who drive who have suffered the consequences of our, at times, very dangerous car-centric city. Houston has a huge traffic safety crisis. Over 300 people killed every year, 1,500 plus seriously injured in traffic crashes. These are numbers that outpace violent crime. So really trying to draw attention to these issues and to advocate directly to decision makers to shape better outcomes around this. Previous to our advocacy around the red line, the most recent effort that we did is our 6th Equity in Transit report, which pairs a survey of Metro riders with some data analysis around Metro's performance to see how are they measuring up compared to what riders care about. A big focus for us this year was around, as is often the case riders voice that their number one concern is frequency of the bus system, making sure that those routes run more often so they can get where they're going faster and don't need to be tethered quite as much to schedules. Once again, that was the number one concern from folks that we heard. And actually something that Metro is doing a pretty good job at this year, without really talking about much. Metro has increased frequency on 12 routes on weekdays, 9 routes on weekends, and the routes with the increased frequency are really driving the bulk of additional riders. Just 7 routes on weekdays are responsible for a third of all additional riders on weekdays, and just 4 routes are responsible for 60% of additional riders on
That's something that I
weekends.
was surprised about. Again, it's been a little while since I was in Houston, but I want to say it was 6 or 8 months ago, and we were, using transit to get all around the city, and there were several bus routes that we got on that were better. I think there was a few that were every 8 minutes, quite a few that were 10 to, like 10 minutes. And once you start to get into that sweet spot, and even better, you don't have to think about, oh, like, when did the last one come? Am I going to make the next one? Or like you see one driving away and you're like, oh, now I'm going to be stuck here for 20 minutes waiting for the next one in July while it's hot and humid. And, I was able to experience some of that firsthand, and it does make such a huge difference in terms of the ridership. So that's great to hear that a lot of that advocacy is focused in that area as well. Well, Peter, if there's anything else you want to add in terms of additional information on the Red Line project, other projects you're working on, I'll give you the opportunity to do so. And then definitely let us know where folks can follow your organization on social media and all that sort of stuff.
Sure. So Equity in Transit was really meant to help elevate the voices of people who are most affected by this stuff. And that's our central aim all the time, and with this Red Line issue, is to connect with riders and say, hey, are you frustrated about this? There is an opportunity for you to have your voice heard, whether through signing the petition, coming out to city council, coming out to the Metro board, to speak directly to decision makers and say, this is affecting me, and I want to see it improved. Everybody has the power to shape better transportation outcomes, and we just we work to co-power with people to help them, show them how. To learn more about Link Houston, you can go to our website at linkhouston.org. All of the information of things that I talked about, whether it's the Red Line petition, Equity in Transit, how to join our community action network, which is our sort of most active volunteers that help us spread our message. If you're in Houston, we definitely encourage you to join us there. And follow us on social media as well, at link_Houston on Instagram and on Twitter/X.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure all those links are down below. And it is so much gets done in cities across the US by organizations like yours. I'm wearing my data shirt from up in Dallas.
Oh, nice.
Those guys do a lot of great work up in Dallas. You've got Aura in Austin. We were in Kansas City earlier this year and met several groups there. Urban Labs, KC, North Loop Neighbors. There were all sorts of groups like this across the country that really make such a huge difference. And, actually being there at the city council meetings, going to talk, it really makes such a difference and can have such an impact on the issues that are important to you in your city. So I really do encourage folks, if you're in Houston and you're not involved in that sort of stuff already, check out the links down below. If you're in another city, do a quick Google search and see if there is a group like that in your area. And if there's not, post an event somewhere and see if you can get people together for a coffee or a happy hour or something like that. You never know where it will go. Peter, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm saving that dough. Public transit's where it's at. Watch me